Yes, I can help with Joshua Selma N sermons. Apostle Joshua Selma N is a Nigerian Christian minister, teacher, and founder of Monomania. His sermons are widely known for their depth. Beloved, every day is a gift wrapped in destiny, and the way you open that gift determines what you will find inside. Morning is not just a time on the clock, it is a spiritual gate. Whoever controls your morning often influences the outcome of your day. Many people wake up and rush into activities without alignment, and then they wonder why battles seem harder. Clarity is missing and strength fades too quickly. The secret is not more effort. The secret is spiritual order. Morning is not just the beginning of a new calendar day. It is a spiritual threshold where destinies are influenced and outcomes are shaped. In the realm of the spirit, timings matter, and the early hours of the day carry a unique authority. When you wake up, you are not merely transitioning from sleep to activity, you are stepping into a gate. Gates determine access, movement, and control. Whoever stands at a gate decides what is allowed to enter and what is kept out. This is why the state of your spirit in the morning often defines the quality of your experiences throughout the day. Many people underestimate mornings because they see them only through a physical lens. They think of alarms, routines, traffic, and schedules. But spiritually, the morning is a moment of imprinting. Just as soft clay easily takes shape, the human spirit is most impressionable at the start of the day. What you allow into your heart in those early moments, whether fear, anxiety, prayer, or faith, sets a tone that echoes through your actions, reactions, and decisions. When prayer is absent, other voices rush in to take control. Every day carries assignments, opportunities, and battles that are not always visible. Some days come with divine appointments, others with subtle temptations, distractions, or spiritual resistance. The tragedy is that many people step into these days unprepared, hoping to react wisely instead of proactively positioning themselves. When you pray in the morning, you are not guessing your way through the day. You are receiving spiritual intelligence ahead of time. You may not always know the details, but your spirit is aligned to respond correctly. The morning also represents leadership in the spirit. When you give God the first attention of your day, you are establishing spiritual order. You are declaring that your life is not driven by pressure, urgency, or human demands, but by divine priority. This act alone distinguishes those who walk in stability from those who live in constant confusion. Spiritual authority flows from order, and order begins when God is acknowledged first. There are days when nothing dramatic seems to happen outwardly, yet inwardly you sense peace, restraint, and clarity. Often, this is the effect of a morning that was secured in prayer. Likewise, there are days filled with agitation, rushed decisions, and unnecessary conflict, not because the devil suddenly became stronger, but because the gate of the morning was left unguarded. When the morning is careless, the rest of the day struggles to recover. Scripture consistently reveals men and women who understood the power of early seeking. They didn't wait for trouble before turning to God. They positioned themselves before challenges arose. Morning prayer is not about length or eloquence. It is about alignment. Even a sincere moment of surrender, thanksgiving, and direction seeking can recalibrate an entire day. It is better to pause and pray than to rush and regret. When you understand the morning as a spiritual gate, you stop treating prayer as optional. It becomes a necessity, like breathing. You realize that starting your day without God is like sending a soldier to battle without armor. The strength, wisdom, and discernment you need are released when the day is still young. Over time, those who guard their mornings notice a pattern. fewer mistakes, sharper discernment, unusual favor, and inner peace regardless of external pressure. This is not coincidence, it is spiritual law. When the gate is secured, the city is safe. When the morning is aligned, the day responds. Prayer is the highest expression of authority a believer can exercise at the start of the day. When you pray in the morning, you are not making a weak request, you are establishing government. Every day already has systems, demands, expectations, and pressures waiting to take control. If God is not deliberately enthroned through prayer, these forces will compete for dominance. Morning prayer is the act of handing the leadership of your day to God before anything else attempts to sit on that throne. Life is full of activities that look urgent, but are not always important. Without prayer, urgency becomes your master. You begin to react instead of rule. Prayer restores order by reminding your spirit who is truly in charge. When you kneel or lift your voice in the morning, you are saying, "This day will not lead me, I will be led by God." That declaration may sound simple, but in the realm of the spirit it carries weight. Authority is established by recognition, and prayer is recognition expressed. Many people want God to intervene in their day, but intervention is different from authorization. God intervenes in emergencies, but He governs where He is invited. Morning prayer is an invitation for divine governance. You are not asking God to follow your plans, you are surrendering your plans to His wisdom. This shift alone saves people from decisions that look profitable but are spiritually costly, from conversations that seem harmless but later produce regret. When God's authority is established early, your responses throughout the day change. You may still face pressure, provocation, or unexpected challenges, but you respond from a place of calm confidence. This is because prayer aligns your inner world before the outer world begins to speak loudly. Anger loses its grip, fear loses its voice, and confusion loses its power. Authority on the inside translates to stability on the outside. Establishing God's authority through prayer also brings boundaries. Not everything that demands your attention deserves your participation. In prayer, God gives discernment what to engage, what to delay, and what to completely avoid. Many spiritual losses happen not because people are weak, but because they are undiscerning. Morning prayer sharpens perception. It helps you sense when to speak and when silence is wisdom, when to move and when to wait. There is also a covering that comes from submitting your day to God. Prayer is not only about power, it is about protection. When you commit your day into God's hands, you are placing it under divine oversight. Some dangers never manifest physically because they were already addressed spiritually. You may never know what was prevented, redirected, or softened because you prayed, but heaven keeps accurate records. Over time, a life that consistently establishes God's authority in the morning develops spiritual consistency. You stop living in cycles of spiritual highs and lows. Your walk with God becomes steady, not dependent on emotions or circumstances. Even on busy days, there is an awareness of God's presence guiding your steps. This is the fruit of daily surrender. To establish God's authority is not to lose control, it is to gain mastery. The one who submits to God is empowered to rule over his day, his emotions, and his decisions. When prayer takes the first place, every other thing finds its proper position. And when God governs your morning, your day follows His order. One of the greatest advantages of beginning the day with prayer is the alignment of your spirit to hear God clearly. Life is noisy. From the moment the day begins, information, opinions, responsibilities, and emotions compete for attention. If your spirit is not tuned early, you may spend the rest of the day reacting to external voices, instead of responding to divine direction. Morning prayer quiets the inner and outer noise, creating a sacred space where the voice of God can be discerned with clarity. Hearing God is not always about audible words. It is often about impressions, convictions, and gentle promptings in your spirit. These promptings become clearer when your heart is still and surrendered. In the morning, before the weight of the day settles on your mind, your spiritual sensitivity is at its peak. Prayer at this time functions like tuning an instrument before it is played. Without alignment, even the right notes produce confusion. With alignment, harmony becomes effortless. Many people desire guidance, but rarely create the environment necessary to receive it. God does not compete with distractions. When you pray early, you are telling God that His voice matters more than urgency, notifications, or human expectations. This posture of honor sharpens spiritual perception. Over time, you begin to recognize the difference between your own thoughts, emotional reactions, and divine leading. This discernment is not instant. It is cultivated through consistent morning alignment. When your spirit is aligned, decisions become easier. You may not always know the full outcome, but you sense peace or restraint. That inner witness saves you from unnecessary explanations, regrets, and detours. Many mistakes happen not because people are rebellious, but because they are hurried and spiritually disconnected. Morning prayer reconnects you to the source of wisdom before decisions are demanded of you. Alignment through prayer also protects you from misinterpretation. Without spiritual clarity, you can misunderstand people's intentions, overreact to situations, or take offense where none was intended. Prayer refines your perception. You begin to see beyond surface actions and discern motives, timing, and spiritual atmospheres. This depth of understanding preserves relationships and strengthens leadership, whether in ministry, family, or career. Another powerful result of spiritual alignment is confidence in obedience. Often, people hear God, but struggle to obey because of fear, doubt, or pressure. Morning prayer does not only help you hear, it strengthens your resolve to follow what you hear. When the day begins in God's presence, obedience feels less like a burden and more like a privilege. You trust that the one who spoke will also sustain you. As the day progresses, challenges may arise, but alignment keeps you anchored. Even when circumstances change, your spirit remains steady, because it has already been oriented toward God. You are less shaken by bad news and less intoxicated by good news. This balance is a sign of maturity that comes from consistent spiritual tuning. Over time, those who align their spirits daily through morning prayer develop a lifestyle of divine awareness. God's voice becomes familiar, His instructions clearer, and His presence more tangible. Life no longer feels random or confusing. You move with a sense of purpose, knowing that you are not walking alone. When your spirit is aligned early, your entire day becomes a conversation with God, rather than a struggle for direction. Morning prayer is not only an act of devotion, it is a declaration of warfare. Every day unfolds within a spiritual environment where forces contend for influence, direction, and outcome, whether a person is aware of it or not. Life is spiritual before it is physical. When you pray in the morning, you are not reacting to battles, you are engaging them before they manifest. This proactive posture is what separates those who consistently walk in victory from those who are constantly overwhelmed. Warfare in the spirit is often subtle. It does not always come as obvious temptation or crisis. Sometimes it appears as weariness without cause, discouragement without reason, confusion in simple matters, or resistance where progress should be easy. These are signs that something is contesting your peace and effectiveness. Morning prayer confronts these influences early. By the time challenges arise physically, their authority has already been weakened spiritually. When you raise an altar of prayer at the start of the day, you are asserting territorial authority. You are declaring that your mind, your body, your assignments, and your environment are under divine jurisdiction. In the realm of the Spirit, authority must be declared before it is enforced. Silence is not neutrality, it is permission. Prayer removes that permission and establishes divine order over your space and time. Many people wait until problems escalate before they pray intensely. While God is merciful, wisdom teaches prevention over recovery. Morning prayer functions like spiritual intelligence gathering. You may not see the traps that were set for you, but prayer exposes and dismantles them. Some delays are avoided, some conflicts never arise, and some wrong associations are quietly disconnected, all because prayer went ahead of you. Warfare through morning prayer also involves strengthening the inner man. Spiritual battles are rarely won by willpower alone. When the spirit is weak, even small challenges feel overwhelming. Prayer releases strength, clarity, and boldness. It reminds your soul that you are not facing the day alone. This confidence is not arrogance, it is assurance rooted in divine backing. There is also a defensive aspect to this warfare. Morning prayer places a spiritual covering over your life. Words spoken in prayer establish boundaries that negative influences cannot easily cross. While not every challenge is demonic, every challenge is easier to handle when you are spiritually fortified. Prayer does not mean trouble will never come, but it ensures that trouble does not have the final say. In warfare, timing is critical. Engaging early often determines the outcome. When you pray in the morning, you are stepping into the advantage of timing. You are speaking light before darkness tries to speak. You are declaring truth before lies gain momentum. By the time opposition attempts to rise, it meets resistance already in place. Over time, those who consistently engage in morning prayer develop spiritual authority. They become less fearful of challenges and more confident in God's faithfulness. Their lives reflect stability, not because battles are absent, but because they are spiritually managed. The believer who understands morning prayer as warfare does not panic at resistance. They recognize it as proof that their prayers are effective. When you win the battle in the morning, the day becomes easier to navigate. The weight lifts, clarity increases, and peace prevails. This is not coincidence. It is the result of engaging the unseen realm with wisdom. Morning prayer ensures that you are not fighting from behind, but advancing with divine advantage. Morning prayer plays a vital role in building inner strength and emotional stability, qualities that are essential for navigating the demands of daily life. Many people focus on physical energy or mental sharpness, yet overlook the condition of their inner man. The truth is that when the inside is weak, the outside quickly collapses under pressure. Prayer in the early hours fortifies the heart, anchoring the emotions before circumstances begin to pull in different directions. Emotional instability often comes from being internally unprepared. When a person wakes up and immediately immerses themselves in responsibilities, messages, and problems, the soul becomes reactive. Small issues feel overwhelming. Words spoken casually feel deeply offensive, and delays feel like personal attacks. Morning prayer recalibrates the emotions. It reminds the soul that it is not in charge, God is. This surrender brings calm, balance, and perspective. Inner strength is not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of it. Prayer helps you process emotions in the presence of God, instead of expressing them impulsively in front of people. In prayer, frustrations are released. Fears are confronted, and anxieties are exchanged for peace. This exchange is not imaginary, it is a spiritual transaction. What weighs heavily on the heart is lifted, and divine strength takes its place. Life has a way of draining people quietly. Responsibilities pile up, expectations increase, and disappointments accumulate. Without renewal, even strong people grow weary. Morning prayer serves daily renewal. It is a moment where your soul drinks deeply before the heat of the day begins. This is why those who pray consistently appear calm, even under pressure. Their strength is not drawn from circumstances, but from a daily encounter with God. Emotional stability also influences relationships. Many conflicts arise not from major issues, but from unmanaged emotions. A person who has prayed in the morning is less likely to speak harshly, react defensively, or act impulsively. Prayer creates a pause between feeling and action. In that pause, wisdom operates. This self-control is not forced, it is the fruit of inner alignment. Prayer also strengthens endurance. Some days are long, repetitive, and demanding. Without inner strength, motivation fades and discouragement sets in. Morning prayer renews purpose. It reminds you why you do what you do and for whom you do it. Even when results are not immediately visible, there is a quiet assurance that your labor is not in vain. This assurance sustains you through seasons that would otherwise break you. Another dimension of inner strength is resilience. Everyone faces setbacks, criticism, and moments of disappointment. The difference lies in recovery. Prayer builds resilience by anchoring your identity in God rather than in outcomes or opinions. When your sense of worth is rooted in divine approval, external negativity loses its power. You are able to stand, adjust, and move forward without bitterness. Over time, consistent morning prayer produces a deep inner stability. You become less shaken by sudden changes and less dependent on emotional highs. Peace becomes your default, not your exception. This does not mean life becomes easy. It means you become strong. When inner strength is built daily through prayer, emotional stability becomes a testimony of God's sustaining grace in your life. One of the most powerful benefits of starting the day with prayer is the invitation it creates for divine guidance before decisions are made. Life is largely a product of decisions. Small daily choices that quietly shape long-term outcomes. Many people pray after decisions fail, but wisdom is to pray before decisions are formed. Morning prayer places God at the center of your planning, allowing Him to direct your steps rather than merely correct your mistakes. Human understanding is limited. No matter how intelligent or experienced a person is, there are dimensions of the future they cannot see. Prayer bridges this limitation. When you pray in the morning, you are acknowledging that insight does not come only from analysis, but from revelation. God sees outcomes before beginnings, and when He guides you, He saves you from paths that look attractive but lead to loss. This guidance is often quiet, yet precise. In prayer, intentions are examined and motives are refined. Sometimes what we want is not wrong, but the timing or method is. Morning prayer brings clarity by aligning desire with divine wisdom. You begin to sense restraint where you once felt urgency, and peace where you once felt confusion. This inner witness is one of the greatest protections a person can have. It keeps you from rushing into conversations, agreements, or commitments that will later demand painful exits. Inviting God into your plans early also helps you prioritize correctly. Not everything that is good is necessary, and not everything that is urgent is important. Prayer reveals what deserves your focus and what can wait. This discernment saves time, energy, and emotional resources. Many people are exhausted not because life is too demanding, but because they are investing themselves in the wrong places. Morning prayer realigns focus before energy is spent. There is also humility in praying before acting. It is a recognition that independence is not strength. True strength is the willingness to be led. When God directs your steps, even detours become meaningful. What appears as a delay may be protection, and what seems like a closed door may be preservation. Prayer helps you trust divine timing instead of forcing outcomes prematurely. Guidance through prayer also affects how you handle unexpected changes. Even when the day does not unfold as planned, a prayed through morning gives you flexibility without anxiety. You are less threatened by interruptions because your confidence is not in your schedule, but in God's leadership. This posture allows you to adjust without panic and respond without frustration. Another important aspect of divine guidance is accuracy in relationships. Morning prayer helps you discern how to relate with people, when to speak, when to listen, when to correct, and when to remain silent. Many relational wounds could be avoided if people prayed before they spoke. God often guides not only in actions, but in tone, timing, and attitude. Over time, a life that consistently invites God into decisions through morning prayer becomes marked by wisdom. Fewer regrets, clearer direction, and purposeful progress become evident. This does not mean every decision will be easy, but it means every decision will be informed by divine insight. When prayer leads your planning, your life reflects intention rather than accident, and direction replaces confusion. Consistency is the doorway through which spiritual experiences become spiritual results. One moment of prayer can bring relief, but a lifestyle of prayer brings transformation. When morning prayer becomes a daily practice, it moves from being an occasional discipline to a spiritual foundation. Over time, what once required effort becomes instinctive, and alignment with God becomes a natural part of life rather than a forced activity. Many people desire lasting change but engage God inconsistently. They pray intensely during crisis and withdraw during calm seasons. This pattern produces instability. Consistent morning prayer establishes rhythm, and rhythm produces strength. Just as the body responds to regular nourishment, the spirit responds to daily communion with God. This consistency trains the inner man to remain sensitive, alert, and responsive to divine leading. Spiritual growth is rarely sudden, it is progressive. Morning prayer accelerates this growth by creating daily exposure to God's presence. Each day may feel ordinary, but cumulatively, something is happening within. Understanding deepens, discernment sharpens, and character matures. The person who prays daily may not notice immediate change, but others will begin to see wisdom, patience, and stability reflected in their life. Victory also becomes consistent when prayer is consistent. Occasional prayer can produce occasional breakthroughs, but sustained prayer produces a victorious lifestyle. This does not mean challenges disappear. It means defeat is no longer normal. When a believer consistently commits their mornings to God, they develop a spiritual advantage that carries into every area of life. Battles are approached with confidence, not fear, because the outcome is already entrusted to God. Morning prayer also builds spiritual sensitivity over time. You begin to sense when something is out of alignment even before it becomes obvious. This sensitivity protects you from subtle compromises and gradual drift. Many people fall not through sudden failure, but through slow neglect. Consistent prayer keeps the heart tender and the conscience alive, making correction easier and repentance quicker. Another result of consistency is peace. Not the absence of trouble, but the presence of calm in the midst of it. When prayer becomes a daily habit, anxiety loses its grip. You develop an awareness that God is involved in your life beyond moments of emergency. This assurance produces rest, even when circumstances are uncertain. Peace becomes a companion rather than a visitor. Long-term consistency in prayer also produces fruit that extends beyond the individual. Families are influenced. Decisions affect generations and environments change. A person who consistently prays in the morning carries an atmosphere of faith wherever they go. Their words carry weight. Their counsel brings clarity, and their presence brings stability. This is the quiet influence of a life rooted in God.